The rain was relentless. It wasn't a gentle drizzle. It was a cold, hard assault, soaking through my thin jacket and chilling me to the bone. Every gust of wind felt like a personal attack, making the flimsy cardboard sign I held flap wildly. "Please help! 2 hungry babies." My voice was hoarse from repeating the plea, but mostly from the lump that had been sitting in my throat for days, threatening to choke me. Inside the double stroller, wrapped in 2 layers of blankets, lay Lily and Leo, my beautiful innocent twins. They were almost a year old, and their little coughs worried me more than the freezing rain. I tucked them as best I could under the stroller's canopy, but I knew the chill was getting to them. Their cheeks were too pale. I adjusted my grip on the sign, my fingers numb. My feet, soaked in my worn-out sneakers, felt like blocks of ice. It had come to this. After losing my job at the diner slow season, they'd said, but I knew it was because I couldn't afford childcare and had to call out too often, and then getting evicted from our tiny apartment. There was nowhere left to go. The shelter was full, and my last $20 had gone to formula. Pride. What was pride when your babies were hungry? I'd swallowed it whole. Every car that sped past, every pedestrian who averted their eyes, every person who hurried by without a glance, it was a fresh stab. But I couldn't stop. I couldn't. Not for Lily and Leo. A woman walked by, clutching a designer handbag to her chest. She looked at me, then quickly away, pulling her coat tighter as if my poverty was contagious. A man in a business suit talked loudly on his phone, not even noticing I was there. My eyes stung, but I told myself it was just the rain. I thought about how I'd ended up here. Life had been simple, full of small joys. Then came the twins, a beautiful surprise that turned my world upside down in the best and hardest way. Their father, well, he disappeared the moment he found out. Said he wasn't ready. Left me with nothing but a note and a mountain of fear. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, trying to make ends meet. But the rising cost of everything, the childcare, the doctor's visits, it was a losing battle. And now, the final defeat. My legs ached from standing. My shoulders slumped. I just wanted to be home, anywhere warm, with hot tea and a dry blanket, holding my babies close. But home was a memory. The street was our home now. Suddenly, a large black car, sleek and impossibly clean, slowed down. It wasn't the kind of car that usually stopped on the street. My heart lurched, a mix of hope and dread. Hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would see us. Dread of another pitying stare, another quick dismissal. The back window, tinted dark, rolled down silently. I braced myself, trying to hold my head high, even as a shiver ran through me that had nothing to do with the cold. A man's face appeared in the opening. My breath hitched. My hand, still holding the sign, trembled so violently I nearly dropped it. Time seemed to warp, the sound of the rain fading into a dull hum. It couldn't be. Not him. Not here. His eyes, the color of a stormy sea, were fixed on me. They were the same eyes I'd stared into a decade ago, full of a youthful fire and ambition. But now, they held a hardness, a knowing, that hadn't been there before. His jaw was sharper, his hair a bit longer, neatly swept back. He was dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than I made in a year. "Sarah," he said, his voice deep, a little rough, yet undeniably familiar. It was Michael. Michael Thorne, the boy from my past, who had big dreams and even bigger promises. The boy I'd loved with every naive fiber of my being. The boy who had promised forever, only to disappear into the world of prestigious universities and lucrative careers, leaving me behind in our small town with a broken heart. My throat was so tight I couldn't speak. I just stared at him, rain dripping from my eyelashes, blurring his face. He looked from me to the stroller, his gaze lingering on the bundled forms of Lily and Leo. A flicker of something unreadable crossed his face, surprise, perhaps, or shock. He opened the car door and stepped out into the pouring rain, not even flinching as the water soaked his expensive suit. He stood there, tall and imposing, a stark contrast to my shivering, pathetic figure. The smell of his expensive cologne, even through the rain, brought back a wave of memories, laughter, Whispered secrets, stolen kisses under the old oak tree. Sarah, he said again, his voice softer this time, a hint of the old Michael echoing in it. He took a step closer, then another, until he was standing just a few feet from me. My babies coughed inside the stroller, a small, weak sound that cut through the silence between us. His eyes, still on my children, narrowed slightly. Are these? He began, his voice trailing off. A question unspoken but clearly understood. The question hung in the air, heavy and loaded. The rain continued its relentless descent, washing over us, washing over a past that had just collided violently with a desperate present. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, a blush of shame and a raw aching pain from seeing him here, now, when I was at my absolute lowest. He, the embodiment of success, and me, the picture of failure, begging in the rain with his children. Though he didn't know it yet, my secret, my burden suddenly felt impossibly heavy in his presence. All I could do was stare at him, frozen by the past and the desperate uncertainty of the future.